A week has passed since we exited the circuit breaker. There has indeed been some increase in the number of daily cases in the community, but as you can see, it's partly due to our stepped-up testing regime. On the whole, our assessment is that the situation over the past week remains under control, and the new daily cases are within expectations. So we will continue to monitor the situation over the coming week, and as we have explained before, by the middle of the month, we will decide on whether or not to make the next move to phase 2. Meanwhile, we should continue to take all the necessary precautions and safeguards in order to keep community transmission low. We appeal to everyone in Singapore that our mindset should not be to exploit each and every rule to the fullest possible degree, but really to understand the spirit of the regulations and to continue to uphold the precautions, stay home wherever possible, minimize contacts to the largest extent possible. Some people ask, but I'm going to work and I already see many people on public transport. So if that's the case, why can't we open up relax the measures for me to see more of my family and friends? I understand why these comparisons are made, but I think we need to better understand that the settings and risk are very different. In public transport, the fact that we are allowing people to return to work, to go back to schools, means that inevitably there will be more people using public transport. And when that happens, it will be hard to maintain that physical distance between one another. We've highlighted this when we went into the phase 1 of the reopening. We knew that this was going to be difficult, and we explained that it was potentially not possible to maintain a physical distance. And that's why we take other precautions, including wearing of masks, including requiring people not to talk when they are on public transport, and step up the cleaning of the trains and the buses. So with all of these measures, we can minimize the risk on public transport. In any case, the public transport journeys are not long. These are transient risks, but with these additional precautions, we are able to minimize the risk further and ensure that public transport journeys are safe. But social interactions are of a different magnitude of risk altogether. When we gather together, whether to talk, to interact, to have a meal together, the risks are much higher. And the evidence we have for cases in Singapore and also the evidence around the world shows that the vast majority of cases, of infected cases, are typically spread by these few events that involve social interactions and gatherings. And that's why we have been much stricter on limiting such social gatherings in phase 1.
One very useful tool so far has been Trace Together. And as of today, we have almost 1.8 million people who have downloaded and activated this app. 1.8 million in our context means about 1/4 of our population. And this, I must stress, has been on a voluntary basis. Now, we all know that in the case of the efficacy for these apps, the higher the proportion of people who've downloaded and are actively using it, the more efficacious it becomes, and that increase is exponential. So what I'm saying is that 25% is good, but it is not good enough, and we need to raise that number significantly. One barrier that we have had to increasing that number is the fact that not everyone has a smartphone, or a smartphone that works effectively enough to supply all the data that we need. So that's why we took a decision to expand the Trace Together program to include a device which we are going to call Trace Together Token. The device will operate and function exactly the same way traced together on a smartphone does. So here's where I need to emphasize and repeatedly emphasize. It is not a tracking device. It is not an electronic tag, as some internet commentaries have fretted about. In particular, and here to be technical, there is no GPS chip on the device. There isn't even any internet or mobile telephony connectivity. And what this means, if there's no GPS chip, the device cannot track the location or movement of any of us. Secondly, because there is no internet connectivity, there is no possibility of data being uploaded without the participation and consent of the user. The first batch will probably be delivered in the latter half of this month, so we will roll that out progressively at that point. And as I said, we are focusing on digital inclusion, which means those who currently don't have a smartphone or don't have a smartphone that works well enough to provide the necessary data to MOH. Well, let me start from first principles. Today we have 25% on a voluntary basis. Do I believe that we can increase it further on a voluntary basis? I believe we can. We need to educate, we need to reassure, we need to demonstrate to people the value that comes from downloading and using it for yourself, that you are helping to protect the community, you're protecting your own family, and even for yourself, because as I said earlier, if you have the app or the device, if you have been exposed to someone who's positive, you may not know that, the person may not know that, but the system will be able to inform you of that.